Welcome to Chautauqua People. This is the 123rd interview in the series and marks the beginning of the 12th year of production on the Access Chautauqua channel. I'm John V. My guest today is John Barr. John grew up in Sewickley, Pennsylvania, and spent much of his childhood on Lake Chautauqua. He had a terrific career as a photojournalist. He started working as a photographer at the age of 15, where he shot for United Press International, covering Pittsburgh Pirates games for U.S. newspapers, including the Pittsburgh Press. Subsequently, he earned his bachelor's degree in Pro Photo Department at Rochester Institute of Technology, where he and I were both enrolled. He continued to work for UPI during his college years. His 35-year career as a photojournalist included staff positions for UPI, Los Angeles Times, Gamma Press Images in Paris, and USA Today. Additional assignments were completed for the New York Times and Time Life publication. What were some of your most memorable assignments?
That's a hard question to ask, John. I mean, a career that lasted over 30 years. I covered world and national headline news, really. I was the guy who got on the airplane and traveled. So editors would assign me to go somewhere and work on a story and then go to lunch and have confidence that that they'd get what they need to publish.
Mm-hmm. Now, you purchased a retirement home in Mayville with the intention of using it 11 weeks per year. The Chautauqua season plus a shoulders. However, you seemingly like it so well, you're now a 7-month Chautauquan.
Yeah, 7 or 8 months typically. The rest of the time I'm in the Bahamas. I'm a sailor. I learned to sail on Chautauqua Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And my first water experience here was with my dad and my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And I raced on family boats, if you would, out of the Institute. And that was my introduction. I've stayed on it. So in the Bahamas, I remain on the water, and I live on a boat during those months.
Right. Now, what kind of boat did you sail on Lake Chautauqua?
My uncle had a Woodhull Lightning, so
Mm-hmm.
that was what he competed on, and I was just a kid that got on board and tried to stay out of his way and learn a little.
And so did you participate then with a sailing club on Lake Chautauqua?
He did, really. Yeah. He was here, as a homeowner, he was here all the time. I was here occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And when you were around during the summer, where did you stay?
Well, we'd rent a house at Lighthouse Point, but sometimes we'd be at his place.
Okay.
In the grounds.
On the grounds.
Uh-huh.
Did you do club or any of that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm not too sure, actually. I don't remember that well, frankly.
It didn't make that much of an impression if you did.
Yeah, I mean, I remember as a child being in children's programs. I assumed the Boys and Girls Club, but didn't know what the name was at that time.
Okay. Now, we're sort of a scattered interview here. You're also a ham radio operator.
Yeah.
And Mayvillians have noticed your call sign, W6JTB, and the license plate of your white Mustang convertible.
Yeah, it's a call sign plate, and when the FCC instituted a program, the Vanity Call Sign Program, I switched from other call signs that were given to me randomly to something that fit. So my initials were appropriate.
Mm-hmm. And is that a pricey thing to have one of those license plates, or is that?
No, not at all. No, I mean there's some minimal fee from the DMV, but.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the emergency communications aspect, they like to identify.
Okay.
And so it's done.
So what kind of equipment then are you equipped with here in Chautauqua?
Well, my house, I have a station that's capable of worldwide communications, and I frequently do that.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a big antenna?
Yeah. Oh, the bigger the better. It's about the shadow
Okay.
that you cast on the ground.
And how do the neighbors like the antenna?
They hardly see it. Sort of a funny story. I had a nice house in a great section of Los Angeles when I was living and working there. And at one point I asked a realtor to come by and look at the curb appeal, and he made a few comments. He said, "Oh, you've got great planters and brick walkways, and the house is really lovely. And I said, well, what would it need before you do the listing and
Yeah.
get this started? He said, nothing. I said, you didn't see that 50-foot tower and antenna on top of it? No, I mean, people tend to look straight ahead. And that's what happened in that case. So it's not a problem.
So it's not a problem. Now, do you still do boating on Lake Chautauqua?
Yeah, yeah. I have a 17-foot Boston whaler with a 90 horse that was the dinghy, actually, the shore boat, if you would, for my big boat that we live on in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
And but one year I came up here towing it behind a car, rented a cabin on the lake, introduced Kate, now my wife, to Chautauqua, and she had spent a lot of time in upstate New York and really felt comfortable in the community. And while I was here, I bought a house.
And that's worked out.
Yeah, I didn't expect to be here longer than, 9 weeks a year,
Right.
like you said, with shoulders, and
Right.
1 week before and 1 week after the season. But we started to stay through the fall. During COVID, we stayed here during the winter. We have a cozy home and a fireplace.
Really?
And yeah. No, I love it here. The place has just raw beauty. You can't hardly beat the raw beauty of Chautauqua County.
And the winters you've learned to, or the winter, that one winter.
Well,
you
one
learned to
winter
adjust
I've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that was not a winter where we were inundated with snow and other
Mhm.
difficulties.
to.
Yeah.
Mhm. So let's talk a little more about your photography, if you can. And we've set the scene now as a local person who
Yeah.
traveled around,
Yeah.
did some really significant photo work. What were your first jobs out of college?
Actually, well, the first job out of college was managing editor of a Sunday newspaper. So I was hired by a publishing house that put out 2 dailies.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a Sunday paper, and I was the managing editor of the Sunday paper. So I know how to write and edit words, and that was my graduate school, rather,
Mm-hmm.
because I edited the copy. I assigned the reporters and photographers to produce original material for the paper, and we made it happen. About 68 pages usually on a Sunday.
Pretty good paper then.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
much stuff.
yeah. We had a lot of advertising, so that's what supports it.
That pays the bills.
Yeah,
So-
of course. Yeah.
And then what did you do after that paper?
Well, I wanted to be a shooter.
Mhm.
My focus was on with a camera in my hands.
Mhm.
I was a journalist, but that was my focus. So after briefly joining UPI on staff in Hong Kong and New York, then they moved me to Los Angeles. And throughout my career, I was in LA for 32 years. The only question was who I was working with in that time frame. But it was from LA. It was my airport.
Mhm.
That's where I traveled from there.
And you can get to just about any place in that airport, can't you?
Yeah, a lot faster than most people could. I literally lived very, very close to the airport and kept a bag half packed.
Goodness.
And I responded quickly. I had wire service machines in my home, teletype machines going off,
Yeah.
24 hours a day with rolls of paper. And as the news came in, I followed it very carefully. And we moved quickly in those days.
And then would they give you a phone call and say, hey, we need you to go here, there, or?
Yeah, or I'd call them and say, it's breaking here, it's in Panama, or there's an earthquake in Mexico City, or, whatever.
Let's take a look at some of your work and see what that produced.
All right, well, this is a famous picture. That's the cover of Time magazine. I was on assignment for Time,
Okay.
and there were 2 of us on assignment, but for covers, the magazine would pick up any picture published by anyone on assignment, wherever.
Really?
Yeah, these things hang on the Smithsonian wall.
And this picture was from where?
That was shot, there, you can't tell in the background, but that's a burning police car that's upside down.
Okay.
The riders had turned the police car over, and had firebombed the police car with the men inside. They fought their way out.
Wow.
And that picture was taken as some riot-equipped and specially trained LAPD were running past it. So the action happened probably 5 minutes before that picture was shot.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Goodness. Okay, what else we got?
Okay, well, here's, this is a famous picture, actually a controversial picture for Time magazine. I shot it for Time again, and this was at Mount St. Helens when the volcano exploded.
Okay. And take a look over here if you need to line them up.
Okay, whoops, all right, well, there we go. Anyway, so that's the body of a 11-year-old boy. His name is Andy, and
Yeah.
he was camping with his dad on the side of the mountain when it exploded. And it's a strong image. It's a very strong image.
Indeed.
And Time chose to run it, and I'm glad they did.
And what's the certificate on the bottom there?
It was a award winner for the year.
Okay, for Time?
No, actually, it was a Press Photographers of Los Angeles.
Great, magnificent.
Yeah.
And that little boy was lost.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he was killed, and there were 60-some people, I think, if I remember. I did a lot of news, a lot of 911 calls wherever in the world. This is Time magazine again. This was earthquake coverage out of Mexico City.
Goodness.
And I responded very, very quickly on that story and was there for 3 days. And actually, when I checked into a hotel in Mexico City, I went up in the elevator, and all they had was the penthouse. And I saw I was on the top floor of this. I was a little leery of it at the time. And the bright lights, though, because the city lights were down below, so as I pulled the curtains closed, I realized that the wall had separated. You could put your hand right through the wall of this skyscraper, the hotel I was in,
Wow.
out like that. When you draw the curtains,
Yeah.
I saw it. So I made my way downstairs, and the elevator scraped when I went up, so I figured I'd take the steps down, not wanting to challenge that again. And the second and third floor had collapsed together, compressed.
Wow.
And so the stairway was blocked and I couldn't get through.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Now, you're taking these pictures in Mexico City. How do they get to Time?
Those went at the time, that's original film. And before we did digital transmissions, and there were 3 or 4 of us there on that story, and it went by an air freight courier, a hand courier that came in to take possession of the film and fly it to New York, and motorcycle messengers meeting people at the airport. Time was of the essence, and meeting deadlines, so it was really quite an effort in those days.
And so they would move it along, and then they would process it and edit it, and
Yeah, and then tell me how I did, and hopefully it was good.
Great. And I mean, these are magnificent. What else do you have here?
Well, I did a lot of space stuff. I did first flights of just about everything the Air Force or NASA had, and one of them was the space shuttle, for example. This was a taxi flight. That's called a double truck. Most of these have been double trucks you've seen. And everybody was up on the front line of there, and I stepped backwards, so I had people to give it scale, and picture was well received. Here's another shot I just noticed on the back.
Well, and this ran where in?
This actually ran in Scope in South Africa, a magazine called Scope
Really?
in South Africa. That was through my agent in Paris, Gamma
Okay.
Liaison. So, and I'll just pull up one more and move quickly here for you. But this was shot for USA Today. Do I have it lined up correctly? Yeah, I do. And this appeared in a picture book published by the newspaper called Portraits of America. And that was a wild horse roundup on the Oregon border at the time. So,
I didn't realize they had wild horses there.
yeah, they have a lot. So anyway, and
these-
one more, just one more.
Uh-huh.
That's what they all say, right?
This is great fun.
That's what photographers say. Anyway, here's another one, another spot news story. That was during an Iranian very violent protest in Los Angeles. It was shocking to me because this news, violent as it was in my town, my home.
Mhm.
And the woman you see on top of the police car had just been hit by that police car at 35 to 40 miles an hour. And she was injured, but okay, and survived. But at the time, demonstrators had cornered police officers. It was an armed situation and incredibly violent. And it happened in Beverly Hills.
Of all places,
Yeah,
Beverly Hills.
yeah.
Wow. So what becomes of these pictures then after they get published?
Well, they're published by whoever they was done on assignment for initially. And then usually they're resold.
Okay.
So through Gamma syndication, that picture could well have appeared in 500 magazines around the world. Yeah.
So if, let's say, I was writing a textbook and I wanted to do an illustration about violent behavior, I wanted a picture of that, I go to call up Gamma or?
Yeah, yeah. And Gamma's now called Getty Images.
Well, I've heard of
So
Getty.
they're, yeah.
Yeah.
So they would license you the right to use the photograph.
And you could probably find it on the internet and then pay the
Yeah,
licensing
oh,
rate.
absolutely, yeah, sure.
And so do you still get pretty good residuals from these?
Not as much as I used to.
Okay.
It was a very nice auxiliary income, but it's not that way now.
Let's talk a few more photo questions, and then I want to talk some more travel stuff. It's fun to scatter around like this. So I understand you became very much of a specialist involved when newspapers switched from black and white to color.
Yep.
Can you tell me about that separation process and how that worked and where you did your work?
Yeah, sure. So because of the training I had at RIT, like you had, you know, we studied photographic sensitometry and chemistry, and we knew color. That's one thing we left with. And anyway, in the early days, you know, wire service photography, and that's where I started with United Press International, their product was black and white. And then newspapers just began publishing in color, and they needed a color expert to both make the images and then go through the separation process of making prints that could be transmitted by wire and newspapers could publish. So I was the color expert because I had the training in school, and so that put me on most of the major stories, always in the West and so forth.
So how did you do the separation then?
Well, they're always in portable darkrooms on the field, unless we were doing them in LA. If something happened in LA, then we had a bureau and normal darkroom facilities to do it. But Space Shuttle, for example, I used a janitor's closet and would put plastic up over the windows and light-proof it. And I made color separations of the first Space Shuttle stuff on my knees in a janitor's closet, making black and white prints that represented 3 color plates.
And you used those fancy filters then to sort out the colors?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then a little bit of adjustment about brightness and darkness and hues and all subsequently.
Yeah, we used masking to do that. We made masks to handle contrast and the range of tones and colors.
And how did this then fit with printing in color? You made 3 separations,
Right.
and you would send the separations to various newspapers,
Yeah.
and they would then have to talk me through this.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So we just distributed 3 black and white images electronically to newspapers. This is the early days. So they were very elementary, and the quality really wasn't terrific. And they would make they would take those black and white prints, burn 3 color plates, and you see them in your newspaper. Chicago Tribune, St. Petersburg newspaper in Florida and so forth were leaders actually in the time, some of the forerunners that did that. Later on, I worked for USA Today as first a contract photographer and then as a staff photographer and picture editor. And there we did high quality original color, the first national color newspaper.
What year was that, do you remember?
No, but the first pictures, I guess, would have been about 83, because one of the big first tests of the system was the 84 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. And I had the first portable color scanner in America. It was done, a special contract just for USA Today. And we purchased satellite time because terrestrial phone circuits couldn't offer the quality we needed. And so it was a very expensive, laborious, and difficult process, but that's how it started.
And they were probably very happy to have somebody muscle it through and make the thing, make it work.
Yeah, I mean, photographers generally don't have the training that we got at Rochester.
No, it was magnificent.
Yeah.
I thought about this since we talked. Normally I like to keep myself out of it, but I remember we were doing dye transfer prints, and a friend and I worked on this, and Bert Stern, one of the best photographers of our time, was on campus, and he came by and critiqued our photograph and said, boy, the color is spectacular here.
Yeah.
And we had some taskmasters to make certain we did that right.
Yeah.
Came back and asked some good questions.
We were lucky students to have the faculty, you know, that
Yes, we
the
were.
university had on hand.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. Now, let's talk for just a moment here further. You had this career. You
Yeah.
were immensely successful. A good number of our classmates did not make it in the field. If you would sort of separate ideas between those who were successful in this, with this technical preparation and those who were not. I had a very different route, but used the degree we talked about.
Right.
What would the differentiating factors?
Well, I was a lucky kid in that I knew what I wanted to do, so I was able to focus at a young age. I mean, I was shooting regular photo assignments for United Press when I was 15 years old. I was covering Pittsburgh Pirate baseball. I was too young to drive. My dad would talk about dedication for a son, but drive me to the stadium, Forbes Field in those days, and I would cover 2 or 3 innings of baseball, and he would drive me to the UPI bureau, wait while I processed and edited film and then captioned it and transmitted it, and you'd see it, you know, on our doorstep the next day.
Now, as we talked earlier, interpersonal relations are very important for technical people. Can you elaborate on some of your observations on that, and why some tech folks so much better than others, and the importance of working on those interpersonal skills?
Well, let's see. Well, photography is communication. So if you can't communicate to people, you know, you're just not going to get it done. So it's important that you be able to speak your mind and explain your vision and explain it to your subjects. That's always the case.
Did you have some good, at Sewickley, did you have some good classes on speech and the like to help prepare this?
Actually, no, I didn't. I mean, they were there, but I didn't take them. Just general education courses and a lot of art. In fact, it was an art instructor at the school that suggested I might make this a career. She thought that I was good enough that it might work, and fortunately it did.
Now, a question I always like to sort of finish with and give you a chance to share anything we need to put out. We have lots of very ambitious, very thoughtful young Chautauquans who are here for the summer. And if one of those young folks came to you and said, Mr. Barr, I would like to have a career as a photojournalist, What might you tell that to? What would your counsel be? And probably explain how your career will be different than what you would anticipate, given the technology. And what advice would you give a student?
Well, I mean, if it's what you want, go after your passion.
Yeah.
That is your passion. But it's going to require a great deal of dedication, and the simple reality is the opportunities that I had in my day as a photographer, I don't believe are here today for others. The budgets and the requirements, all of print journalism has changed so dramatically. So I'm not sure I would encourage, unless they were absolutely driven. And if they were absolutely driven, of course, that individual will have what it takes to produce the product that would have to be in today's world.
How about video? Is that an option for somebody today?
Well, certainly. I think there's more opportunity in video than there is in still photography, for sure. But the one thing about video is it's fleeting. The still picture lasts forever, and it's not a fleeting moment. So I ran into a situation once with Tom Selleck on the set in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And in the film they were doing, he was dressed in fatigues, he was carrying an automatic weapon, and he was in a canoe going up a river in Vietnam, trying to discover a buddy who was lost in the war or held prisoner or something like that. I can't remember exactly. And so when he asked me what I wanted in a picture, I said, it's simple, just, as you were in the film, just get right up there and like this, fatigues and makeup, everything that a soldier has in that condition. And he wouldn't do it, and I asked him why, and he said, your picture will live forever. And then later I discovered he was a real supporter of the NRA, and I didn't know that at the time. And he thought it might have a career implication, I guess.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
What a great point. Is there anything else we need to share?
No, I'm delighted to be here and to be asked to be here. It's an honor.
I'm delighted to have it, and we just sort of ran into one another at a magnificent alumni event last fall.
Yeah.
And here we were on campus at the same time with the same major, didn't know one another.
Yeah.
This has been fun, and I do hope you'll come back.
Okay, well, thanks for asking me again.
By all means.